Serious, parents who have adopted an older child, 5 and up, how has it gone for you? Do you regret it or would you recommend other parents considering adoption look into an older child? My wife and I adopted an older girl from our state's foster system. The girl was 13 when we adopted her and we were told she had a rough childhood full of abuse and she had been diagnosed with general mood disorder. Little did we know that the psychological assessment was done by an unqualified state doctor and this little girl had severe issues that required more care than my wife and I were prepared for. We spent 5 years dealing with fighting, arguing, runaway attempts, drug use, alcohol abuse, constant emotional manipulation, constant lying, stealing, etc. She was also in constant contact with her schizophrenic birth mother behind our backs. The woman kept feeding our daughter conspiracy theories and lies and constantly making the situation worse for all of us. We tried the best we could for 5 whole years, trying various different therapists, trying different parenting methods, seeing different doctors, all to no avail. It wasn't until about 5 months before her 18th birthday that we had to have her committed and we finally got a proper diagnosis. She was diagnosed with bipolar and BPD and we finally had an answer to the years of heck we all had to go through. We did our research and learned the proper way to parent a child with these conditions and things began to improve over the last few months she was with us. But on her 18th birthday she bailed and we haven't seen her since. That was 5 years ago. I'm so sorry. You guys really did try and that matters a lot more than you think. I feel I got lucky. He was 9 when we adopted him, but he was just grateful to have a home and people who loved him. My wife and I love him dearly as he does us. Thank you for the silver. This is my first time getting one. You Christian who's 649. 2 silvers. Thank you. You exactly accurate Joe. 3 thanks to you. High or not high enough? My pre-adoptive son just moved in 6 weeks ago. He's almost 10. Him getting here has been a bit of a long and wild story but he's been in care since he was 6. It hasn't been easy but there's so many older kids who need families. My biggest thing is just to make dang sure you're committed. Know your limits. Be honest with yourself and your adoption coordinator. And demand honesty from the social worker as well. Ask for psych evals and treatment histories. Because if you convince yourself oh I can handle this and you change your mind, you are traumatizing that child. My son has complex trauma from years of abuse but the thing he talks about most after his meltdowns, having to leave his first pre-adoptive home because he kept losing his temper and throwing things. He's been in 4-5 placements and a PRTF since then. I work with girls involved in juvenile justice so I felt uniquely prepared for this situation and even for me, it's been physically and emotionally exhausting. I'm a single parent and we're in the middle of a global pandemic so I'm sure that's a factor. But if you choose to adopt there shouldn't be any changing your mind or this just isn't working out. That kiddo is part of your family. My son and I have a little mantra together forever. Even when things get hard, even when things get sad. That's a beautiful mantra. I bet it's a comfort for you both. Thanks for sharing your story. I took guardianship of my son's half-sister when she was 14. Their father, who is not and will never be a part of my son's life, was abusive and tried to molest her once when he was drunk. As a result she was hypersexual and acted out. Her mother was a pushover who didn't know how to handle her so she was put into the system. I knew she wasn't a bad kid, so I stepped in and said I'd take her. It was rough that first year. She tested the boundaries a lot until she realized that I wasn't going to give up on her. I think it also helped that her baby brother adored her and my parents welcomed her with open arms. We found her a good therapist that she clicked with and that really helped her work through her issues. She finished school with good grades, met her boyfriend who is wonderful with her. She has kids of her own now and is a fantastic mother. Best decision I ever made was taking her in. I'm glad she's doing so well. It's often hard to understand for foster parents but if they start acting out it means they are feeling more and more at home. They need to know you will hold on to them unconditionally, and when there's a breakthrough it often goes a lot better. We adopted our eldest daughter at 10. We actually adopted her baby half-sister first, after the mom met us. Since we were doing this via foster care, she asked if we'd adopt her other daughter too. She had been in and out of foster care most of her life, and her bio mom selflessly made the decision to let her go for stability and safety. We definitely weren't planning to adopt an older child. We already had a 6-year-old biological child, but after meeting the 10-year-old, we knew we'd want her to be a part of our family. It's been 16 years and it definitely hasn't always been easy, but we have no regrets. We love our daughter like our own. She was challenging to raise the first few years, definitely had some trust issues with us and some deep-seated abandonment issues. Family therapy helped. Every once in a while, like once every few years or so, these issues resurface. She still struggles with depression and anxiety. It'd be lying if I said this doesn't worry me. It does. But she seems to have a handle on it. She's always been incredibly smart and talented. She just finished her master's degree, has had a successful career thus far, and she's engaged to a wonderful man. They were supposed to get married this summer. Now we aren't sure. Thanks COVID. It's almost odd that she has really excelled in everything she's ever tried. She thinks it's mostly due to good luck. We call her, half jokingly, our achiever. Some of her success was due to our parenting, I'm sure, but most of it is just her and how she's wired. I'm proud to be her mom. That's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear everything went well. We adopted a 15-year-old girl after raising 3 bio kids to adulthood. It has been good but quite different from what we expected. 15-year-olds are not fully formed but almost. She is a nice smart kid, but also got pregnant, hid it for 4 months, had a beautiful baby. We expected to finish high school and hold down a part-time job, save some money which she would need to become independent after graduation, her goal. She moved 1,000 miles away, took up with kind of a rough crowd, was immersed in a druggy thiefy homeless group that made her fear that her son would end up removed and back in the foster care system. For now the baby is with us. Almost 2 babies are a lot of work but also a lot of joy and laughter. We are about 60. Occasionally I think this is not what we signed up for, but in reality it is exactly what we signed up for. Most folks when they have a kid or multiple kids have a bunch of expectations. Part of what makes it interesting is that the kids come with their own personalities, software, journeys, whatever you want to call it, can make for a wild interesting 20 years. Teen years were rough. It's hard to be a kid again after having to parent yourself and younger siblings, but now that she is an adult, things are better and calmer for us all. I would 100% recommend it. Even with the struggle, my child is a huge blessing and I can't imagine life without her in it. She is one of the strongest people I know. My husband and I adopted my brother's 2 kids, at the time 2M and 6F, and their sister, 4F. Our oldest was violent and abusive to herself and toward me. She never acted out that way around my husband, which always made me feel as though I was doing something wrong. Maybe we weren't a good fit. Maybe I was too young. Maybe she was better off with her foster family. I would spend every night in tears, fearful that we were doing more harm than good, because she never acted out that way before adoption. She was reading by 3, eating up chapter books before we could introduce them properly. We thought she was memorizing street names. Nope. She read them faster than we could most times. She was, and still is, a brilliant young lady that shocks people when she speaks. But those fits. It took our dog almost a year to really trust her. At one point she kicked me so hard in the mouth I thought I had lost teeth. Therapy and counseling helped more than I can even say. For both of us. Her therapist reminded me that she was hurt by her mother, and never knew her father enough to not trust him. She was throwing knives, metaphorically of course, haha, because she had never really trusted women before. She was wary, and rightfully so. We both worked so hard to develop a healthy relationship, and honestly we're still putting ours into it. She's almost 10, and honestly just like me. It's odd. It's like we've always been a family, but it didn't always feel that way. Oh man, she sounds like me. ADHD plus hyperlexia plus RSD. Couldn't explain why I was angry all the time till I got diagnosed with ADHD and learned about its comorbidities. I adopted a 15-year-old. He was heck on wheels and made a lot of really poor choices. He's now 20, and I am so proud of the man he became. It was a horrible time trying to get him to understand that abuse isn't love and that we wanted the best for him. but he's doing great now and is working really hard to create a loving family of his own. Do I suggest adopting older kids? Heck yes. The biggest reason is because I grew up in foster care. All I wanted was my own family. It's hard, it's taxing, and you have a lot of rewiring to treat their hurts and make them better so they know you're not going to do the same to them, but every minute is worth it. I adopted a 7-year-old from foster care in 2017. It was an absolute failure. My wife pushed me to choose this child even though I didn't feel the sparks everyone talks about when meeting or hearing about their kids. He has a background of being sexually predatory and it's triggering for me as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I separated from my wife in 2018 and we shared custody for about a year. I asked her for a short break and she took the child and never returned him. I can't say I'm unhappy about her choice. I didn't really fight for her to bring him back. I have seen him only a few times since then. I care for him as a human being and of course wish no harm upon him, but I'm not his parent. It's one of the most difficult things I've been through. My story is a bit different. I was coaching a soccer team and had a kid in the foster program on the team. He was 13. Over the course of the season my wife and I really got to know him and saw how crappy his foster parents were. At the end of the season we asked him if he wanted to come live with us instead. It's been 9 years since then. We had rough patches, but for us it was easy. We were still a young couple, 24 and 27, then, but his social worker arranged continued funding for us which eliminated any financial burden. It was an easy decision for us and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. We've had 4 of his other biological siblings live with us at one time or another as they've aged out of foster care. They all have their own unique problems, but all kids do. His 18-year-old sister asked to come quarantine with us so we've got her staying here now. His brothers and sister are all just extra family and our biological little ones, 3 and 5, call them all brother sister. He's 22 now and almost done with college and hopes to be a police officer. Sadly my wife and I will be moving out of state soon and we'll miss him like crazy, but no, we've prepared him for life outside our home. We'll still be there for him of course, but we're excited to see him thrive independently. His girlfriend of 4 years is pushing him to move to our new state once they both finish school so they may still be back near us soon enough. I adopted an older child and the only part I regret was agreeing to an open adoption with the birth parents. Separate biannual visits with bio mom and bio dad. Each and every visit was sheer heck on earth. From the build up to the fallout after. I regret nothing about adopting an older child and would do it again in a heartbeat. But I would do a closed adoption. I'm asking because I adopted my daughter when she was age 10. It was pure heck to begin with as it was not shared with us she had serious psychological issues. After 7 years of therapy and many tears, we had a breakthrough. Now 27 years later, I was asked if I recommended doing it. I was at a loss if I should have been honest or just say yes because once you get past the issues that will surely arise, it's a wonderful thing to do. Yeah, be honest, so if those parents adopt a child that needs help they can get it sooner. I don't regret it and I do recommend other parents look into older children. There are an abundance of children who need loving parents. We adopted 2 siblings and we also have 2 biological children. Our biological children were 9 and 7 when we adopted our 5 and 4-year-old children. That was 11 years ago. Best advice: embrace an open adoption but adopted parents fully control any contact. Our kids' biological mother has been a huge help in counseling our kids. They misremembered so many details about how and why we adopted them that led to blame against us and challenges in our relationship. They have a fierce loyalty to their biological mom that's decreased over time as she's openly reminded them how unfit she was. It wasn't a cakewalk, but we are all much better off than we were when we stumbled into this. My wife and I adopted a 16-year-old boy over a year ago. We originally went in thinking we are going to adopt much younger, but when we started reviewing profiles there were a large number of teenagers in the mix. Most people adopting children are looking for the full parental experience. For some, adoption is their only chance at raising a child, so I can kind of understand the desire to adopt a young child. The result is that the older children are skipped over. It's heartbreaking, as many unadopted kids exit the system at 18 and almost all of their supports disappear. We kept running into these profiles and it was impossible to ignore them. We were adopting to expand our family, already having kids of our own, so parenting wasn't new to us. He's been a great addition and has blended really well. Not the parent, but the child. A bit of a different story. When I was 2.5, a foster family took me in. They had two slightly older adopted children in the home. One had adopted when he was a newborn, the other when she was about 2. I was their first-ish foster child, and then they got into the swing of things and fostered a few more. From the time they got me until I was 5, it was a court case to determine who of my bio family would get me, and in the end it was neither and I would stay in the foster home. I can detail that but it's less relevant. It was a rough couple years which I have memories of still, over 2 decades later. Then when I was 6 my foster parents started the adoption proceedings, and they completed when I was 8. Because they had me from a young age, you think that we'd still have a bond. But at multiple times during my adolescence my mother, adoptive, told me that because I'd been adopted at such an older age, she'd never love me as much as the older ones, never have that sort of bond. I argued that she still got me at 2.5 which was around the same age as the older adopted sister, but my mother still argued that it wasn't the same. I would always be lesser. There is so much more to the story than that, but apparently there are people out there that love to their children is conditional upon when they got them. If that's you, either A, reconsider when you get the kid, or B, never tell the kid that you love them less than everyone else for something they had no control over. I was never a bad kid, great student, helpful, did everything at home, literally was called the other mother in the home since I helped raise other kids, but nothing was ever enough. I am so sorry to hear that. What a horrible, hateful thing to say to a child. You are wonderful and the world needs you. I'm sure you will be an amazing, caring, compassionate parent someday if that's what you want. I hope you've surrounded yourself with people who love you unconditionally. We adopted a 5-year-old girl. She's now 12. Don't regret it at all, but it has been extremely hard. She has been diagnosed with PTSD, reactive attachment disorder, and most recently bipolar disorder. She has been in therapy since we adopted her. Much has improved, but she still has extreme anger issues. She has run away from home 3 times. She has been inpatient psych twice. Her school has reported us to DHR. When she gets out of control we have to restrain her to prevent her from hurting herself or us. She told her teacher about an incident when we had to restrain her, so they reported it and a social worker showed up at our door that night. I wouldn't recommend adopting an older child to someone unless I know they are willing to put in the work. Love doesn't cure all. I became dad to a little girl just after her 2nd birthday, legally stepdad just before her 4th, and divorced her mother just after her 7th. But I remained dad and I do to this day, and she's 21 now. Her mother is a drunk, who had 2 more kids later on with an abusive guy, now ex, who is in jail. The whole time my daughter had me to fall back on. I told her the truth at 15, as I know it, about her biological father who has never attempted to contact her. He has at least 2, if not 3 other children. If she wanted to seek him out, I told her I would help her. Also that she needed to be aware at any time he, or those other siblings, could seek her out. She looked me in the eye and said, "Number, you're my dad. That's all I want to know." This story warms my heart. I can tell that you're truly an exceptional father. I have adopted 6 kids. 4 were between 7 and 13, a sibling set, and then 2 that were younger, 3 and 5, a different sibling set. It has gone mostly well. There has been a lot of therapy and issues due to past abuse. The hardest part has been learning how to redefine what it means to be a successful parent. It is also challenging discovering deficiencies in their upbringing. I did learn how to do creative parenting. We adopted a sibling group of 5. They were 12, 10, 9, 8 and 3. We are only 2.5 years in and the first 2 years were just pure chaos. It's like a cycle of trial and error as well as them testing us. Each child is growing at their own rate and making great progress and healing. My kids were removed from their parents' care and placed with my in-laws as part of a familial care placement at the ages of 7 and 9. My wife and I started caring for them 3 months after that. We were granted legal guardianship about 16 months after the placement. In November of last year we were finally able to adopt them. Coming from someone who never wanted kids, it has honestly been fulfilling to see the huge leaps and bounds these two have taken. The youngest, when placed with us at age 7, had never been to school, couldn't read, didn't know shapes or colors, and still talked like a toddler. Just a few years down the road and now she is the top of her class and we couldn't be more proud. When they were removed from bio parents, the youngest had lice so bad you couldn't run a brush through her hair. They slept on a mattress in the middle of the floor with no water or electric in the house, and they survived eating nothing but ramen noodles. I fostered 7 and adopted 2, all girls. I got them between the ages of 12 to 15. I took that age because they were hard to place and I knew they were coming with loads of issues. My second to youngest had been part of a child pornography ring run by her parents. She was my biggest challenge and still is. She is the human embodiment of EIOR. She made it through college, got her law degree, passed the bar and self-commits at least once a year. She's schizophrenic and still suicidal. One of my middle girls was severely beaten by alcoholic parents and she has a slight drinking problem and thinks nothing of swatting her kids. She knows if I see one mark on them or if them say anything I will take them. The others have mostly self-esteem issues. They are all grown now. I'd do it all again. These are my kids and I love them. I also had one biological daughter and a stepson. The stepson is the only one I regret. It's definitely not for everyone. You sound amazing. The children were very lucky to have you as a mom. My husband and I unexpectedly adopted a 17-year-old. She was on drugs and a downhill spiral. So we gave her a place full of love, therapy, help, therapy, rehab, and more therapy with love. She healed and became a part of our family. It is kinda odd being only 9 and 10 years older than your kid, but she is still our kid. Also, we are a gay couple and knew basically next to nothing about females and their monthly needs. She never had a loving and stable household with men that didn't hurt her in emotionally and physical ways. So it was one big old learn process for the 3 of us. But we made it work and now we are like any other family. I took in a 15-year-old with severe mental health issues. She is 19 now. I'm early 30s. It is funny now when we go to the pub and she calls me mum and my best friends, also female, dad and auntie. People get really confused. We've made our own strange family, haha. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.